But I mean, I bring these things up because what went on, and Drake has a line on "Give Me a Hug." And he says, Neo in the Matrix. These niggas is Nemo in the motion. Little fish trying to make kids feel emotions. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what went on, to the point where Kendrick Lamar, this was the highlight of your career. A rap artist, especially a rap artist that doesn't have hits, being able to perform at the Super Bowl. Not only that, and it was very obvious that all these things were happening to make Not Like Us look more valid. All right, let's go ahead and give him not just one Grammy. Let's give him 5 Grammys. And because his album dropped, I think, outside like the eligibility, like I think it might have just made it. Right. This is an album that people just heard, right? So I forget what he got them all for. But then after that, you got friggin' Conan O'Brien making jokes about Kendrick and Drake. And basically he made a joke saying, now was the part of the evening where Kendrick Lamar comes out and called Drake a PDF file. And it really was funny, and that was facts. Because like, yo, when you had a whole room of people singing A minor at the I think it was the Grammys, right? You gotta think about what that says. And Azalea Banks made a brilliant observation by saying the fact that y'all laugh at and joke about and tease Drake about him possibly being a PDF file means that you obviously don't think it's true. Because in what world is the possibility of him being a PDF file something that you just loosely talk about on the record and sing about the Super Bowl? They couldn't show Janet Jackson's bare breast at the Super Bowl. They let Kendrick Lamar do a parade New Orleans style performance, which is a song about it's basically about a song about how white people are terrible, and Drake is terrible because he has white, basically because he's half white. So that makes he's a bad person because he's half white. He's a thief, right? He doesn't do anything for the community. He takes from us, so on and so forth. When in all actuality, this is the dude who got you popping. I remember where Kendrick was at. I remember seeing his shit on Complex and NotRight.com. I was not clicking that shit. I didn't click that shit until when I heard him on the Drake album. And I thought it was Drake rapping at the time for a minute. That's like, okay, wow, that sounds different. Because if you listen to Buried Alive, it do sound like Drake. And then I learned, this is Kendrick Lamar. This is pretty, I like this shit. This is pretty dope. Then I heard Section 80. Then after that, he took him on tour. 2013, that album came out. All that shit went in order. He got a big boost from that, right? For Kendrick to be up here talking all this shit, you understand? When like, yo, you ain't never been hot without Drake. 2013, you cooled down, you came out trying to diss Drake again. You know what I'm saying? And Drake was smart and never really engaged. But let me tell you why I think he engaged this time. I think Angry Man made the same point. I think that he knew. Well, for one, so I think either Angry Man or the Joe Budden podcast was making a point about why would he engage in this with him. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, yo, at the end of the day, the media programs you do stories and movies and stuff like that to always, because who are the rich people in every story? The rich people are always evil, or the people who have money, the people who have ability, the people who are talented, the people who are beautiful. And every story ever told on TV and movies, most of the time, they're usually evil, especially if they have any wealth, especially just any of that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that people who have wealth don't ever do anything evil or bad, right? But your people will get into that mindset without knowing anything about them. Okay, which is one more reason of why people fed into this whole thing, because again, it's a time where it's acceptable to shit on somebody, and we have to always resist the urge to shit on people. So hence, I think the one example that I think we're all guilty of is how we treat homeless people. Now, I may not always give them money. I may not, you know what I'm saying, always, sit, kick it with them and whatnot, but I never ignore them. And I always try my best to make eye contact if I can. And I might get annoyed from time to time because, like, yo, you're trying to get, through this door, and you have a doorman out here. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, yo, being where I've been over the last couple of years, which I always had compassion, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I always think I'm always like grateful. You know what I'm saying? I don't carry cash and whatnot. And also, it's like, you know, when you know how all this shit works, man, most of all people, they don't need your money. All right. They may want some extra money, but they getting a check and they're getting benefits. All right. If they not, then they stupid. You know what I'm saying? But anywho, I know I'm going off on tangents and whatnot. But this case with Drake and UMG has been going on for a while now. So the case is mostly, it was always about Drake was suing UMG. He was never suing Kendrick Lamar in particular. But the thing is, what I realized, and I commented on this yesterday about how we have so much more media and so many more voices. So when things trend, they trend from content creators and people commenting on something online, right? Using certain words, and also from content creators creating content. And to have content, you got to have a narrative. So I get it, right? But the whole narrative, I saw a video yesterday with this guy who was a Super Saiyan soft nigga. He had blonde hair, so I guess he was going Super Saiyan soft. And then the ninja said, you know, so I thought that Drake was in a coffin after the performance at the Super Bowl. But surprisingly, so the story was about how Drake surprisingly put out Nokia. Like he was talking about the success that he's getting, and I'm like, but that was a narrative being pushed the whole time, was that, yo, this guy's career is over. People are not going to listen to him anymore, and they're not going to listen to him no more because of Kendrick Lamar. And it's like, and again, that is the power of a narrative. All right, in terms of what people tell you and what people gaslight you into. All right, gonna find out. Listen, when a certain time came, listen, when the smoke cleared, a lot of podcasts, including the Joe Budden podcast, started saying different things. Admitting that Family Matters was tougher. You know why? Because they weren't being paid to anymore. A lot of people got paid. A lot of people got the perks of being able to play the song during a stream and a show. But the narrative that was pushed because from the beginning it was always about Drake is defeated, Drake needs to go away, and in so many words, Drake's stock is down, which was never true. Right. And I bring this up because I got to get out of that shit, man. That's you being programmed to hate success, because as long as you hate successful people, you will never be successful, or you won't reach your full potential because you don't understand how shit works. Come on, man.
That's my shit. Play that.
You understand?
Here's what we doing right now.
No, Joe.
You feel me? So let's go ahead and play a video for my man Anton Daniels. Yo, we're gonna be here for a little bit, man. We rocking out tonight. We doing some content tonight. We doing the old school. I gave y'all a 2-hour show in a little bit, man. Let's get to it. So shout out to Anton Daniels. He gonna share this joint. And matter of fact, I'm gonna play it on full screen. I'm gonna get my ice pack right back, y'all. Fair use. Thank you, Anton.
What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I want to have a discussion really quickly from a business perspective, and I guess we can talk culturally, because you can't really talk culturally about hip hop or rap music without looking at it from a business perspective. But I want to talk a little bit, and I'm going to share this article with you guys so that we can really have this conversation in truth about the recent revelations and the court documents that has been revealed to show several different things in this whole Drake process. Now, for those of us that's been living under a rock and we have to refresh your memory, obviously we know that Drake and Kendrick Lamar had a battle, and it took over the whole music industry. And lo and behold, obviously we had the Super Bowl with Kendrick Lamar, which personally I thought was a little bit lackluster. I'm not really for all of the Black Lives Matters content and stuff like that. But more importantly, Kendrick Lamar got the opportunity to do the Super Bowl, and so salute to him. Outside of that, though, Drake had already previously filed a lawsuit, and people had took that as a massive L because they said that Drake just couldn't take his loss like a man, and so on and so forth. I thought that Kendrick Lamar ultimately could be declared the winner because Not Like Us was the biggest hit, but I thought that Drake had the best diss record, personally.
So, just real quick, but before we even go any further with that, right? It's what I noticed. People who got motion, people who want to continue to do well, right? People who have ambition, right? And people who think for themselves recognize from the get-go. Because if you think about the content, first of all, it's a lot of content. He's angling the fuck out of him. It was always an underdog thing. What I realize in battles is that most of the time when I battle people, I realize, oh, I'm not the underdog. That's why you're not giving me as much credit. I'm not the underdog. Oh, it's interesting. So you don't see me as like the dominant one. Because if you saw me as not being as good as this person, you would be more impressed when I start getting off. But in most battles, I'm not really an underdog. It's kind of people kind of feel that I'm getting ready to take the shit. Pause. I mean like that. I'm getting ready to take the battle.
Little ninja. I see you, little crusty ninja. I see you, little crusty ninja.
Protein shit. But people saw Kendrick Lamar as the underdog, whether you want to say it or not. Because it really, when Kendrick got out there and embarrassed himself at the Super Bowl and everything, because for the most part, because that's when it became clear you don't have hits. And you know the argument people made for this nigga? The performance wasn't for you. It wasn't about enjoying music. That's like going to a strip club, right? And you waiting for these dancers to come out, and then some niggas, and then some dudes just come out and start dancing. You like, yo, what's going on? Like where's the girls at? And you like, everything's not about vagina and ass and titties and seeing a bad bitch. Like you can't do something different from time to time. You can't watch this man express himself, and you can't support this man. Oh, you your brother's keeper? And I'm gonna say, nah, nigga, I'm straight.
Little ninja. I see you, little crusty ninja.
Not me, nigga. Anyway, but anyway, I just want to point that out. That like I'm like, because where I'm at in life now, because some of my favorite songs I still had in the playlist, the one from K-Dot. And like I remember even when I heard Mr. Morale, like it was awkward. Like I liked a few songs on there, but they weren't like last album good. I never got to that whole album. And even back then, I never called it whack, even though I knew I didn't like it. I remember thinking like, wow, I'm not impressed by this shit at all. Like, and I remember making excuses for him, like, well, I remember saying to my boy one time that Kendrick Lamar, the way I see it is like, yo, he has to go through his own path. Because I mean, in a way, right? Being an artist, right? For some people, they have to go through certain journeys and whatnot to give you these magical moments. But then I realized, you know what? Actually, no. Yeah, he can go through the journeys, right? Or just go through certain steps or certain phases to give us a magical moment, meaning a good song, but he also does not have to include all of the not good songs on the album. He'll give you an album with a bunch of not good songs on it. Okay, like, but anyway, when he went up there at the Super Bowl, that's when we realized you're not really a superstar like that. Like you're not really a superstar like that. Not really. Because more and more, I remember over the years, I used to be thinking like, man, like Kendrick Lamar be getting some big looks because like, yo, a rapper that had that kind of content back in the day, he wasn't getting no looks. Like I always thought it was weird. Like the love he got. I remember years ago, Lady Gaga had put up a tweet saying, Kendrick Lamar, when's your album coming out? I want to go to the clubs and dance again. And I remember thinking like, Kendrick doesn't have songs that they play in the club. At that point, especially back in 2012, Kendrick didn't have no songs that they played in the club. He didn't have no club records or records that you would play in the club. I remember thinking like, what song? like what song is that? You know what I mean? So Lady Gaga, even at that time, is still a huge pop star, right? And she actually was on the original version of Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, and it was very good. I'm not sure why she wasn't on it, right? But she was on the original version, or there's a version out there with her singing the hook. Very dope, right? But at the time, I didn't realize, oh shit. So this was always an industry push. That was to promote him. Everything that happened, the looks he got from Drake, all of this was to make sure that he got to a certain level. And I was watching a show with Angry Man, and he pointed this out, how the content of Kendrick's songs and raps, he pointed this out in a few different ways. In one episode, he talked about how when he wasn't doing good, he can get into his music a little bit more. But once he started doing better, he didn't like his music as much anymore. And I never had the words for it. But when I was younger and I wasn't doing good, like I liked his songs more. But as I started doing better in life, I started to listen to him a little bit less. And if I don't relate to that. Not that he's rapping about being broke, but it's the whole vibe, how the song sound, what he represent. And for the most part, it's just, I mean, listen, it's cool. We have different standards for different niggas. Niggas don't want to say this shit, but Nas was never fucking with Jay. You know why? Because Nas could give you a song that Jay you would never allow. He can give you a quality of song or give you verses and lyrics you would never tolerate from Jay, or you would never listen to it and say that's fire. That'll be fire coming from Hove. You know why? Because you looking for Hove to give you them joints. And I'm not saying Nas don't got no joints, but he don't got joints like Hove. Okay, like Nas would die against Hove in the verses. Like for the most part, the only nigga can do a verses with Hove is Drake. All right, if you really thinking about it, maybe Busta, right? But Busta don't got enough iconic Johns where his verses on them are iconic. Hove got mad memorable iconic verses. Hove could do the blueprint. You would have a hard time beating the blueprint. You know what I'm saying? You would have a tough time beating the blueprint. Like only a nigga like Drake could get up there and battle the blueprint. You know what I'm saying? You understand? Especially if you put all three together, that's tough for most niggas. Excuse me, miss. You know what I'm saying? The Nas this, the You Don't Know remix, the You Don't Know, the original You Don't Know, you know what I'm saying? H to the Izzo, girls. Man, listen, the list goes on, you understand? But anyway, let me let Anton continue to cook.
Something that I wanted to hear, something that when he switched the beat 3 different times and all of that, that was for me. But again, I know that a lot of people don't consider me a hip hop aficionado because I don't create content around hip hop or address every single beef or do album reviews. But we all like music. We all love hip hop. And I'm not going to switch my content to do that just to be able to justify giving my opinion. But more importantly, I like to look at things from a business perspective. And this is where I really shine. Over on this article in particular, and this is courtesy of BBC. I know a lot of y'all think of BBC a little bit differently, but it is a very, very valid news source. And I want to go over this really quickly with you guys to see exactly what this is. And the reason that I want to do that is because people think that Drake's real lawsuit or what he was doing was against Kendrick Lamar. I don't think so. I think that Drake was really trying to focus on his bag and also at the same time possibly take down the music industry. And if there's anybody that was powerful enough to do it, maybe it was him or Taylor Swift. But this is courtesy of the BBC. It says the court gives Drake access to Kendrick's contracts, which is.
So real quick, UMG has been trying to get the judge to deny Drake. Basically, what Drake is trying to do is get access. I don't know who's calling me. What Drake is trying to do is get access to the books, right? And so when it comes to these kind of things and whatnot, people have a right to what's called discovery. So that means a right to certain records and whatnot, and so they can get a better understanding of who got paid, who was incentivized, and how far back does this go, right? So again, what Drake is alleging is that UMG used the money that they made from Drake's catalog in order to fund the marketing and the boost of this record. Okay, So just give y'all a little more clarity. All right. And also going back to what Anton said, he said Drake was saying more things that I wanted to hear. All right. So if you follow Anton's content, Anton's a little more conservative. He's more so about God and family and continuously elevating and having the conversations needed to help the community be better, especially Black men. I've been heavily influenced by Anton more in ways they will never know. Honestly, Anton's one of the main reasons why I'm doing content today. Because I remember following him, and I love his mindset, and I love how easy he made it seem, and how relatable he seemed. Man, he just doing his work. You know what I'm saying? I remember like when he was at a certain level of subs, and to see how the numbers he does now, like it's really inspiring, honestly. And he's just, it is mostly, the challenge is mostly about being consistent. That's how far you can get by having a quality show and being consistent. But anyway, but going back to what I was saying about the whole content, right? Depending on where you are, listen, certain lyrics hit different for you depending on where you are in your life, right? Like with Hove, one of the reasons why niggas didn't like Hove subconsciously is because he made it clear that you're going to have to be better, all right? Because what Hove rapped about was about elevation, and Hove was also giving y'all a unique perspective and a unique look into the life of someone who was in a unique position. Hove was somebody who's from the bottom, the absolute bottom of society, and managed to rise to the top. You know what I mean? He talked a lot about your relationships and friendships and the different dynamics that go on when you're the guy on top. So, for example, with Hove, we never seen someone get attacked as much as niggas attacked and win at Hove. All right, niggas been trying to jam Hove up for years from different lawsuits, different beefs and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Hove was the nigga. I mean, listen, people had rap beefs and whatnot, but Jay-Z was the nigga to this. You know what I'm saying? And in my era, when I was younger, it was cool to basically say shit on Hove, because what people would do was shit on Hove in favor of Nas or Wu-Tang. Even by that time, Wu-Tang was old news. Like the members of Wu-Tang still did music, but it wasn't no Wu-Tang albums coming out. So Wu-Tang was before my time. That's 94. You know what I'm saying? So like, and I was never around no one who was playing Wu-Tang like that. You know what I mean? I knew who they was, and I knew about ODB and stuff like that. And I was, my uncle had that tape and whatnot. So he probably was playing it. But they wasn't. Because they didn't have commercial success like that, at least to the point where I knew the records and whatnot. I knew Method Man and shit like that, but that was, even at that point, again, that was like old school sounding at that time. Like Method Man sounded a little bit old, not old school, but a little 90s at that time. You feel me? Because they era that this wasn't 2000s, not really their era. They still sounded good in the 2000s, right? But it wasn't really their era. But anyway, I just want to touch on what Anton said in terms of the perspective, in terms of like who you are, has a big impact on how you heard those records. Because I heard Drake make valid points that actually were good angles, and they would be good angles in a battle. Whereas for the most part, what Kendrick did was basically a Hail Mary. It was a self-destruct button. He said, listen, I'm going to make this about race. I'm going to make this about the fact that you're not a nigga like me. I'm going to make everything that's good about you a negative thing. I'm going to take the fact that you have a Jewish heritage, and even though Jewish people pay me and write my checks and whatnot, I'm going to do this shit, because Kendrick does this shit where because again, this is something that Black people with a poor mindset get into, which is the joy of trying to talk shit to white people, or getting confrontational with white folks, or talking bad about white folks to their face. You know what I'm saying? Despite whether it's appropriate or whether it's even constructive. So with that performance, the argument can just be made that, well, it's about symbolism and all this other bullshit. Yo, get the fuck out of here. You did a bunch of whack ass songs at that performance. Like, yo, do the ones that we wanted. Matter of fact, if you would have did Poetic Justice, that'd been a whole different beast. If he would have did Fucking Problems with A$AP Rocky and Drake, that would have been epic. That actually would have been good. You understand? If we would have did Loyalty with Rihanna, that would have been awesome. No. Anyway, my bad.
Major. And this is a part of the discovery process. It says Drake has been given a green light to access sensitive record company documents in his ongoing defamation case over Kendrick Lamar's song Not Like Us. The star had asked for copies of Kendrick Lamar's recording contract as well as information on salaries and bonuses for senior executives at his record label at Universal. Now, why is this important? Why would he want to know bonus information and salaries? Because one of the things that has been, reported, or one of the things that's being accused of UMG is that they're doing the same thing that they did to Drake and Kendrick Lamar, that they did to Big and Pac and so on and so forth. Basically, that they're trying to incentivize each other to tear each other down, and they are promoting Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us unfairly, as well as other things, in order to try to capitalize off of and hedge their bets against Drake, because Drake doesn't need to be the only star that's generating the majority of the revenue over at UMG. So they're using him. Basically, this is what he's saying, right? In a nutshell, in a summary from a C student's perspective, is that they're using him to continuously build up other artists, but at his detriment, all right? And that's why he wants to know, who's getting a bonus as a result of what's happening? What are the salaries of the people that's making money off of this? Who's helping who? And I also want to know his contract, because I want to know what incentives that he has and what you guys are doing on the back end, because we really need to get all of the cards out on the table. Says that Drake is accusing the company of defamation by allowing Lamar's song to be published and promoted, claiming that it spread false and malicious narrative that he is a P word, right? Universal filed to dismiss the case last month, calling it a logical attempt to silence Lamar's creative expression. Imagine that. Imagine your record label that owns and promotes both of you guys' music, making money on both sides. Goes on to say it also asks for a pause in the evidence gathering process known as discovery while that request was considered. However, on Wednesday, the judge ordered that the discovery should continue. Michael Gottlieb, Drake's lead lawyer, celebrated the decision in a statement to the BBC. Now it's time to see what UMG was so desperately trying to hide.
Now, so real quick. So if you haven't been following this, right? And again, let's just follow the logic of, if there's nothing to hide and you're telling the truth, why wouldn't you want to produce the evidence that you're telling the truth if you had nothing to hide? UMG has been trying to stop him from moving this situation forward from the beginning. They've been trying to have it dismissed. They have not been trying to fight this case whatsoever. Angry Man made a brilliant point, and that point speaks to, again, you watch too much goddamn TV and movies, and in TV and movies, and shout out to Jordan Peterson, he made this point too about, in TVs and movies, the alpha male is always the villain. The alpha male is always a bad guy. The strongest guy, the most popular guy, the most good-looking guy is always a bad guy. The guy who has money is always an asshole. He's always a terrible fucking person. And what that does is make you root for the little guy, make you root for the loser, make you follow the loser. Kendrick Lamar could never fuck with Drake. Y'all say that Negroes do that just to shit on you, because they jealous of how good you are. So what they'll do is, this is something niggas really do. They will say that someone is comparable to you, or as good as you, or compare them to you, or basically put you on the same space as a jab, because they know that you're not, and they know it's insulting to you. That's another thing that we do on this channel, is I help you to also improve your communication and your understanding. Same voice you talk with, the same voice you think with, right? So when I say that, I'm talking about how, what I also point out is, knowing someone's attacking you, because you cannot flourish, you cannot grow, you cannot become great being around people who tell you that you ain't shit, or make you feel like you ain't shit. Yo, give me a second, yo. My bad. I don't know, man. Somebody called me for some number and they're not leaving no message or texting me, so it can't be urgent. So,
says, according to the court filing, Drake's team is seeking documents including all contracts between UMG and Kendrick Lamar, and the salaries and incentives plans for senior record label staff going back to 2020. They want to know everything. They want to know what the plan was, if this was always in the works, if it was an unfair advantage, who's making money off of it, the whole 9 yards. So this is a major, huge victory. And it also goes against UMG's request to ultimately dismiss the case. They're not having it. UMG has objected to the request, saying that it is costly and time-consuming process of gathering the commercially sensitive information was an undue burden when the case could still be dismissed. Here's the key. Here's the catch. There's also been several different credible sources. I'm going to go to the one that's easiest to be able to cite, but there are several different sites that are reporting, including Media Takeout, that Universal is now offering, now that the judge has declined to dismiss the case and is granting Drake and his team the ultimate opportunity to see behind the curtains in the discovery process. They're saying that Drake is reportedly getting offered a $250 million settlement lawsuit.
Listen, this is the level that they playing on. What bothered me a lot is that I guess I'm just at the point where I'm just too elevated. I feel that way a lot when I deal with certain people, when I talk to certain people, is that my thinking is too elevated. So when having this conversation, I realized like, damn, I can't even have this conversation with most people because you weren't really trying to be objective. You were trying to basically blend in with the crowd, and you wasn't even listening. I had to realize at some point I realized, oh, a lot of people actually didn't listen to Drake. They actually didn't listen to it. And listen, that happens. There's people that I'm a fan of. I may miss your project. I got shit going on. Sorry, I'm busy. You know? Like, listen, that could definitely happen. I've missed a lot of projects, right? It doesn't mean it's not good. But I think, and also Not Like Us came out right after Family Matters. Right? So people who argue in favor of Kendrick will say stuff like, oh, no, it's because he stepped on that shit. No, it's just that's how the news cycle works. If the response, I swear, my apartment building, whenever people like close the door around my building and whatnot, it always sound like they're in the house with me. You know what I'm saying? This apartment's like mad fucking big. Anyway, so lost my train of thought. Oh, anyway, so go back to what I was saying about understanding what level they're playing on. I was telling my boy, I said, yo, you know how much a deal with Drake is worth? You know, listen, like, so the issue was about, for one, y'all owe me money. Two, you owe me a new deal. It's time for renegotiation, and you've been avoiding renegotiation. And it seems as though now that we are for renegotiation, you are ballooning someone else's numbers and calling in mad favors to bring my stock down. Because the thing is, when Kendrick calls him a PDF file on the song, that's what people repeat all over the internet. You see it all day long. That's the first thing they say. So you can see that the argument is legit that, yes, this is damaging his. I'm bringing out smoke. That's why I got the smoke going. But the argument is there that it's clearly damaging or was damaging to his career and reputation. And that's for any man. If any man gets accused of doing something that heinous, it's not something that people forget or let go of. No, your reputation is ruined forever. You will always, you know what I'm saying? So acting like having a record be promoted and then find out that you use your resources and call them favors and purchase payola, you know what I'm saying, and did podcast payola, because podcast payola may be even more powerful because, well, actually it's the new payola, because a clip from a podcast can go viral. All right, people trust and listen, and they depend on these people to give them an opinion to have. That's why they watch these shows. They're looking for Joe Budden to give them an opinion. That's what human beings do in general. It's like we talk about politics, right? If it's something that I don't feel like really getting into, you can give me an opinion. I want to rock with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to rock with it. And it's almost unreal, because now the whole argument for this record and how big the record actually was, it's done. Because if this is true, UMG has admitted they basically admitted defeat, and they admitted defeat first. That's what a settlement is. It's not, I don't want to waste time with this. Angry Man made a really interesting point, and it really showed me how despicable you niggas is. And the argument that he made was, you've never seen especially the culture, side with the record label against a black, not just an artist, but a black artist that does hip hop music. And in those moments, you realize, oh, okay, no, you are really biased. You are really and truly a hater. Okay, I got my soundboard. Make sure my soundboard's nearby. Listen, we soundboarding the whole episode, son. We soundboarding the whole episode, man. We ain't listen, bro. Hold on, man. What?
Little ninja. I see you, little crusty ninja. I see you, little crusty ninja.
Crusty ninja?
Goes on to say, if you thought the rap beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar was all about bars and billboards, nah, that's not really it. It says that Drake attended a game between the Houston Rockets and the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Toyota Center on March 16th. Everybody's been seeing him down in Texas and Houston. And they saying, according to an insider, his lawsuit against UMG may be on the verge of a quiet settlement, and the numbers being thrown around is basically in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Say Drake filed a bombshell defamation lawsuits against UMG, claiming that the music giant used bots and payola to artificially boost Kendrick Lamar's hit "Not Like Us," the song that's now being called the biggest track in the world. Drake's legal team is arguing that Universal, which backs Kendrick, manipulated the numbers to hurt his reputation and distort the competition. So basically, they're offering $250 million to settle the suit. And the question that we now have to ask is it enough? Is it enough? Because who's to say that Drake is interested in settling at this point? Maybe he feels as though this is a lowball offer. And not only that, maybe he has so much money. And again, I'm just speculating here and I'm just giving my thoughts. Maybe he has so much money and so many resources at this point that it's not really just about getting a payout. It's more or less about taking down what we know as the biggest entity in the music industry, or maybe it's double, a two-way street in which he's not only trying to crush them or get out of this, but also remove himself from his recording contract because he is much more profitable by himself instead of being controlled by a major, which he don't really even need at this point, right? Some people argue, he didn't need a major. I remember when Academics was reporting and he was saying that there are people that are at the music label that was saying that they can't wait until Drake had dropped his next project because he's going to see that they were the ones that were pushing him instead of him really having the motion that he had. Obviously, we seen the album with him and Party Next Door, and that crushed what that narrative was. But I'm curious as to what you guys think. Do you think that Drake is actually going to win this lawsuit? Do you also think that the music industry and UMG, Universal Music Group, are the ones that are manipulating things so that they can possibly hedge a bet to ensure that in the case that anything was to ever happen to Drake, knock on wood, or in the case that Drake ever removes himself from his contract, or if they ever tried to lowball him and he didn't resign, that they had another star that they were promoting that they can ultimately make a lot of money off of in order to continue to keep the lights on. Let me know what y'all think inside of the chat. I love y'all. I appreciate you.
So I've heard this narrative before. I think I mentioned it earlier. I was getting to it earlier about how this may have all been employed to help Drake get out of his contract. Because to a certain degree, he knew how y'all was going to act. I think the main thing that Drake didn't account for was how just how black men treat each other, and just how we see black men in general. In the black community, if you refer to the hierarchy goes old black woman at the top, then it's women, then under that is kids, and then it's men. All right. So the narrative you also saw was basically what everyone was saying was, hey, why can't you take your loss like a man? Just be a man. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Don't complain. Don't say nothing. Because for the most part, what you really heard was people trying to convince you that all these whack songs were good because it meant the destruction or what you perceive as the downfall of a winner. That's what it was mainly about. You don't like winners. And you don't like good people. Because if you think Kendrick Lamar is a good dude, do you realize you say that with absolutely no proof? You can't tell me whose career he started. You can't tell me who he helped out. You can't tell Drake has gotten countless niggas lit who were able to get other niggas lit. Drake was the only nigga that came into the game and didn't need a cosign. Drake came into the game getting Young Money hot. He got them hot. Without Drake, that movement is not the same as just Wayne. Having Wayne, Nicki, and Drake there at the same time, you'll probably never see that again. You'll never see three people that are talented on the same record in the same space again. Because all three of them got to be so big. I mean, no, it's mostly Drake got to be so big because Wayne's career was always in a decline.